Right now, I'm trying to throw stuff at my girlfriend so she can fill my water glass up. She has headphones on. Hold on. I'm going to throw this piece of plastic at her. 1 second. Hey! All right, I'm back. Sorry, we just had a whole large pizza. I'm very thirsty. There's a place called Archie's Pizza. It's amazing, but there's a lot of sodium, and I'm a little parched.
Hello, party people, and welcome to the 25th episode of When Life Hands You Lemons. I'm still so shocked, honestly, that I have made it to 25 episodes, and I haven't missed one yet. So I'm a quarter of a way to 100 episodes, and I'm so shocked still that I haven't missed an episode. So I wanted to say thank you again. I know I've said it in previous episodes, but thank you for supporting the podcast. It's because of you and all the support you've shown me, because that I keep doing this. I'm humbled to be able to do this. It's been one of my passions and dreams for a couple years now, and you guys are finally making it become a reality. So without kind of some of the sultry talk, let's kind of dive into this episode. So Mr. Zac Taylor is incredibly funny, incredibly talented, and he reached out to me on Twitter, and we kind of sparked a conversation. He explained to me that a couple of his good friends were on the show, and I will link their episodes in the show notes below. But Mr. Zac Taylor, or Mr. Zac Van Bellman, as I like to call him, is originally from Atlanta and has played in countless bands in high school and then went on to do so at the University of Georgia. He graduated from the Berklee College of Music in 2010 and then moved to New York City and spent years hustling as a bellman at a fancy hotel. He played guitar for comedian Sandra Bernhard, and he took some comedy classes, improv comedy classes, and, some other odd jobs, as, we all have to do it sometimes. Since then, he's had the opportunity to perform and play with the multi-platinum artists, American authors, for 5+ years. And with them, he's been able to play on Conan O'Brien, Ellen DeGeneres, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, if I could talk, Seth Meyers, James Corden, Kelly and Ryan, and David Letterman. Now, if that isn't a resume, holy cow. He also plays numerous instruments, including the guitar, keys, banjo, mandolin, and he also sings backup with the American authors. And they will be going on tour this summer, and they will be opening for the band OAR. Just recently, he started a new solo project called Van Bellman, and he has released his first 3 singles over the last year and has received the attention from Billboard and Sirius XM. And he also has a show coming up in the spring at the Mercury Lounge. So I don't want to give too much more information about Mr. Zac Taylor, as he does a very good job of telling his story and kind of portraying his personality. In the show, we talk about becoming a Van Bellman, how you could potentially become a Van Bellman. I fortunately passed the 10 phases of becoming a Van Bellman. So if you are interested in listening, you can learn about a few of the steps on how you can become a Van Bellman. We also talk about making a living as a musician, and he talks about some of his struggles, because you may make a living for the first 3 months, and then you may not be making a living for the next 3 months. So being a musician can be very difficult, especially one like Mr. Zac Taylor, as you're touring with the American authors, and sometimes, if they're not touring, you don't really have a job. So it really can be ups and downs. He tells us a lot about the Van Bellman. Gosh, I cannot talk today. The Van Bellman project, where he's released his singles and kind of where he takes that. And he also talks about why he started it, which is kind of rebranding himself. And he talks about how lovely the band just rebranded themselves. The people that do Broken, which I will also link in the show notes below. I'm a big fan of that song. I love the band. How he used to be good friends with the lead singer, and how he rebranded himself and became successful. And he has a few other friends that also did the same thing and became successful. So I will let Mr. Zac Taylor tell all of that information and the story. So without further ado, as I always like to say, please enjoy my conversation with Zac Taylor, or Mr. Van Bellman.
All right. Hi, Lennon. This is Zac Taylor. Greetings from New York City. I'm an Atlanta native. I've played guitar for about 24 years now. Wow, it's a big number when I say it out loud. I grew up in Atlanta. I played in a lot of blues clubs as a teenager. I went to the University of Georgia, played in a bunch of bands, went to Berklee College in music, took out a bunch of student loans foolishly. But I did meet a lot of amazing other musicians and songwriters while I was there. And in 2011, I went to New York, got a job at a fancy hotel to pay the bills. As you may have heard, New York can be a little expensive. It's not just a rumor. So
just a little bit.
just a little bit, yeah. So I carried bags for at a fancy hotel for a lot of people from all over the world, which is actually kind of fun. It's kind of an amazing job. You get to meet people who are coming in for business or on vacation. You get to kind of experience New York life vicariously through them. And we got the occasional celebrity like Bruno Mars and Rihanna. There's if you go on TMZ and look up Gansevoort and Rihanna, chances are I'm holding the door for her, carrying her bags. I kind of want to make a T-shirt of me holding the door for Rihanna from back in my Gansevoort days. I wonder how
You totally should.
I wonder how legal that would be. I wonder how quickly the Rihanna team would hit me with a cease and desist order. They don't care.
Rihanna
They don't care about
or the
me.
photographer, whoever took the picture, potentially whoever owns the picture.
It'll be a short run of T-shirts. Anyhow, I worked at the Gansevoort for like 3 or 4 years, and then my friends, the guys at American Authors, I was friends with them at Berklee. I would always come see their shows. They would come see my shows with whatever band I was playing with. And their song "Best Day of My Life" started to take off in like 2013. I saw them play on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. I'm like, whoa, I know these guys. This is crazy. This is so cool. And once they got some more steam going, they were able to hire a fifth musician. And they hired me. So that way the singer, Zach Barnett, could just, do his Mick Jagger thing and get the crowd going. And he's a very good guitar player, but they wanted to just turn him loose and be the front man and do the Adam Levine / Mick Jagger / Iggy Pop / Oprah Winfrey thing in front of the stage, get people jazzed up. So I've been playing guitar and keys and a little banjo and a little mandolin with them for a little over 5 years. And I've played with a handful of other acts. I do a lot of songwriting, do some producing, and I started a new band about a year ago called Van Bellman, which is a little tip of my hat to my prior gig from me and when me and Rihanna used to date back at the Gansevoort. You heard it here first.
Okay.
I dated Rihanna. Don't fact check that or anything. Let's just know it to be true.
Yes.
So in the past year, I've been working on this new project. I've released 3 singles. I'm just releasing one song at a time. And playing live shows whenever I can. Everyone else in my band is kind of like me in that they're like a hired gun for a bunch of other acts. Like my bass player, Brian Percival, plays bass with Britney Spears. My drummer, Bruno Ezrabilski, plays drums with Mitski and the band Joseph and a bunch of other cool people. And I have a rotating cast of keyboard players, guitar players, backup singers, and everyone is just living the New York musician life, trying to, make their mark on the scene, make friends, make music, pay their bills, and it's an exciting time right now in the New York music scene for me and my friends.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it is. Sounds like you're having a good time up there.
It's just the action never stops, which for better or for worse. Sometimes it's good to have a little respite, but other times it's just you have 7 shows in 7 days. I'll be gone for probably all of June, July, and August, all over the country and Europe for a part of it. And it's great to be employed with a real bona fide music job, and it definitely is better than working at the fancy hotel carrying bags for a bunch of people. But it can be a lot sometimes, but that's kind of what I signed on for. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I mean, so how do you manage yourself with all these traveling all the time and booking tickets and having to like kind of find time for yourself? Like how do you deal with all that? Because I can imagine how stressful that would be to manage your job and then also try to maintain kind of a personal life.
Well, with the American authors, they're on Island Records. They have management. They've got a tour manager. They've got a booking agent. So they just kind of tell me the schedule, and I just kind of show up and play the guitar and sing some songs and try not to piss anyone off. But and everyone's great in that outfit. All the guys in the band and the crew and the management. I get along with everybody, and we have a lot of fun. But I'm definitely like a hired gun for them. So when it comes to my band, which has taken up most of my time in the last year or so, I'm my own booking agent, my own tour manager, my own producer, and I have to hire the band. I pay everyone. I book all the gigs. I try to get my social media accounts up. I work with a publicist, and I've gotten some really good write-ups and some good reviews, and social media numbers are looking good, which is something you have to consider in this day and age. I wish I could spend more time, writing songs and performing, and it'd be great to have a team of people that would worry about how cool I can look on Instagram and how good my Twitter sphere is looking. But I'm sort of a one-man operation these days, so I try to budget my time the best I can. Like, okay, between now and 9 o'clock, I'm going to work on my website, and then I'll try to turn my computer off and my phone off and go play guitar and sing and work on a new song, and try to get ready for my show. I have a show coming up next week, and so I try to do all my computer stuff and glowing screen activities in like one sort of segment of time, and then turn it all off, and then get the guitar in my hands and get the microphone in front of me and try to be a musician instead of just a
Yeah.
It's everyone knows how we're all addicted to our phones and computers these days. I'm trying to fight that addiction the best I can, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
No. Yeah, I'm with this podcast, I'm kind of a one-man band myself. I'm reaching out, finding the guests, I'm scheduling them, I'm meeting with them and or Skyping with them, recording them, editing the shows, and then releasing them and doing all the show notes and doing the marketing for it and making sure that there's an email blast and it's uploaded and scheduled on YouTube and my website. And it's kind of a one-man band right now, and it's basically a full-time job on top of my already full-time job, like my day job. It's a lot of fun, but I wish I could spend more time doing like the actual recording and just doing stuff like this, because this is what I like doing. I don't mind doing the editing as well, but everything else is like, I don't have as much experience in like the social media, nor do I have as much interest in it. I used to, but I'm kind of losing interest in it recently, just because it's getting to be so dark, and I'm getting kind of timid of it.
I know how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. I was in line at Starbucks at the airport in Dallas, and I left my phone to charge, and I was in line at Starbucks getting coffee for me and my girlfriend, and these 5 probably high school girls right behind me, just 5 girls, 5 heads tilted down, 5 iPhones in their hands. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny. Look how absorbed into their iPhones they are. And then I reach for my iPhone to try to take a picture of it. I'm like, God damn it. I'm just as bad. It's the same thing.
Yeah, you kind of fell into it. But yeah, I mean, I'm also a musician as well. So I haven't had a lot of time to write music, and I've been doing it a little bit more, trying to write music in the computer and just kind of piddling around with some of the plugins that I've gotten, and just trying to get into more sound design and just figuring out how sounds work, because sometimes you can find some really cool sounds and just instantly spark an entire song just from hearing one simple thing. So I'm trying to kind of feed on that a little bit more, but it's so hard when you've got to do all this other stuff that is very tedious, like the marketing and scheduling and writing social media posts and the email blasts, and it gets tiring. I want to spend more time on the creative stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I want to spend time, like, I love going out to shows. I see a lot of live music in New York, obviously. I love going to see like improv comedy shows and stand-up comedy. I have a handful of friends who are trying to pursue that sort of field. So I also love just getting up and getting out into the world. There's a bunch of great clubs in Brooklyn. There's some great places in like Lower East Side. And and just getting out and meeting people, because it's New York City and you never know who you're going to meet in any given night. It's a great place to go out and get in adventures, and
Right.
in real life, not in cyberspace, clicking away on Instagrams, you know.
Right. I have quite a few friends up in New York. One of my good friends from college lives up in New York City, and he's doing really well. He's kind of doing film stuff, and he was actually a guest on the podcast quite a few months ago. But he's worked for companies like with Google and Dr. Pepper, and he worked with VH1, and some of his stuff was played in Times Square. He's had some videos go viral on Facebook, and so I need to kind of utilize those connections and get up there and get back up there. And just New York City is just such a beautiful city. It's such a beautiful city.
It's a lot of fun. And you're in Orlando, right?
Yes, I am.
Good old Orlando.
Yes, good old Orlando.
I've done a bunch of shows at all the theme parks with American authors. And one time, a few years ago, we got to go to the Harry Potter world, and it was unbelievable. I've seen like a movie or two. I'm not that big of a fan, but we got the VIP treatment. We got to go to like the front of the line in front of thousands and thousands of children with their parents who've probably waiting months and months trying to go to see Harry Potter. And we get to go right in front of them and step on their dreams. It was amazing. We get to go and we get to drink the butter beer, and we got to
so good.
Our bass player got a magic wand from a wizard. And have you been to Harry Potter World?
Yes, I've been there a couple times, and it takes my breath away every single time.
It's unbelievable, just the attention to detail and the paintings on the wall that move, and man, it is a wild scene.
You literally feel like you're in the movie. And like you can buy just regular ones, or you can buy the interactive ones for like $20 more, where you can actually go around the park, or kind of like I think it's Diagon Alley there, and you can like wave the wand at things and it'll start interacting. Like it'll actually like cast a spell. It's like the attention to detail and the things that they'll do to get your money.
It's insane.
It's insane. But yeah, everybody, whenever I tell like family and friends, they're like, "Oh, are you still in Orlando?" I'm like, "Yep." "Oh, you must live at Disney and Universal." I'm like, "Sure don't," because I'm on the opposite side of the theme parks, and it's quite a drive, and the traffic down there is horrendous, especially this time of year.
Did you see the movie The Florida Project, which takes place in Orlando?
I have not. It's a movie?
It's a movie. Yeah, it's the same director who did he did a movie called Tangerine. And it's Willem Dafoe is like this guy he runs this kind of like shitty hotel right down from where all the theme parks are, and a lot of like sort of lower income families live there. A lot of like single mothers with their kids who are 6 or 7 years old. And the movie is really about the kids and the relationships they have. They're going out and they're being kids, sort of in this like really rundown neighborhood, and you kind of see the world through their eyes, and a lot of their parents are very imperfect. Some of them are prostitutes occasionally. Some of them are ripping people off, but they're trying to take care of their kids. So it might hit close to home for you, being an Orlandan citizen. Do you say Orlandan or Orlandian? What do you say?
I guess I've never really thought about it. I would say like Orlandonian?
Orlandonian? That doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't. But it sounds cool.
Orlandonian.
Orlandonian. I guess
Anyhow,
I've never really thought about it.
It's a horribly heart-wrenching movie, and I can only recommend it a lot.
Okay. And is it on Netflix or Hulu?
You'll find it somewhere at the Florida Project.
Okay. I'll have to look it up. Can you tell us a little bit more about your Van Bellman project? Kind of what inspired you to start that? What is it? And kind of where do you hope to take it?
Sure. Well, I've played always as Zac Taylor, just as a singer-songwriter. And clearly you've never heard of me, so things haven't been going that well for Zac Taylor. I played a bunch in Atlanta, a bunch in Boston, a bunch in New York at, singer-songwriter nights, and then places like Rockland Music Hall. And I just wanted a fresh start. I wanted to do a new project that was sort of ambiguously a band or an alias, sort of like St. Vincent or Talking Heads is sort of David Byrne, but it's also the band. I wanted to start a new thing and start fresh. A lot of my friends who started fresh great things sort of happened. Like American Authors used to be called the Blue Pages, and then they just sort of shook things up, got a fresh sound, new name, worked on the image, worked on the brand, worked on the business, and it was only then until things started really happening for them. They also, had been working for a long time, and they're very smart guys. And I know a guy named Mitchie who was in a handful of different bands. He just started a band called Lovely the Band, and then his song Broken has just been crazy. I think it was the number one song on Billboard Alternative in the past year.
I literally am obsessed with that song.
Oh, it's a great song. So he used to sleep on my couch. I knew him through American Authors, and his old band Oh Honey opened for us on tour a few years ago. And we've always been homies, and he would come to New York and sleep on my couch. And he would usually pay me with a steak dinner, which is always very generous. And he's just been in Los Angeles for the last few years, just hustling and writing songs. And that song definitely connected with a bunch of people. So he's killing the game. And it all started with him being, you know what? I want to start fresh. I want to start with a new project. So, those two guys and a handful of others sort of inspired me to I need to pick a new name. So I decided on Van Bellman. And my first song was called I Hate to See You This Way. And that came out in June. And the next song was called Golden Blue. It came out in November, which premiered on Billboard.com, which is super exciting. Around the same time, Sirius XM started to play I Hate to See You This Way, also very exciting. My girlfriend filmed my own little That Thing You Do sequence when it started playing on my computer on Sirius XM. We were freaking out. And the newest song is called All This Time, came out on Valentine's Day. And all three of these came from one recording session, probably, Jesus, like 2 years ago now. This guy named Oliver Strauss runs Mission Sounds. And his daughter was applying to college, music college. She's super talented. She was applying to NYU, Clive Davis, and Berklee College of Music, and USC. So he needed someone to take pictures and video the audition process and make a package for all the different applications. So I did that for her, and she got in everywhere. She got a scholarship to go to USC. And now she's called King Princess, and she's on Mark Ronson's label. Again, she rebranded, and now she's fucking killing the game. I saw her play at a really cool venue in Brooklyn called Warsaw, and she has a huge following. She gets hundreds of millions of streams on Spotify. And she's 20, she's 19 or 20. She's just an insanely talented girl. Awesome songwriter, awesome singer. So I helped her with the college thing, and in exchange, the studio owner, Oliver, her dad, gave me 2 days in the studio. And that's where I did guitar, bass, and drums, and hand claps, and toy pianos, and a handful of other stuff for these first few Van Bellman songs. So I did all the basics there. I hired a vocal producer named Kyle Patrick to do the vocals, and then I did the rest in my bedroom. Just more guitars, acoustic guitars. My friend Marie played cello. I did some gang vocals. I did some... what is that thing called? Washboard. And then with that washboard thing, that sort of scratchy sound you hear, and I Hate to See You This Way, I just found some strange reverb patch. And all of a sudden it sounds like some weird devil scratchy thing. So like you were saying before, if you just sit down and experiment with sounds, you never know what kind of cool thing you can kind of find. And I'm not great with Logic and Pro Tools and all that sort of stuff. I'm getting better at it. But I produced these first 3 songs. And so now I'm at the point where I need to get back in the studio, do some more basics, and finish some songs. And I'm hoping to do another song before I go out on tour with American Authors, which is in June. So that's sort of my plan, Stan, where I am right now.
Okay. So this whole thing basically kind of started with you kind of being inspired by all these other artists kind of rebranding, correct?
Yeah, you could say that. That definitely was encouraging. I talked to a handful of people I know who work in marketing and record labels and management. And I sort of tested the water, should I release this as my name? Should I think of a band name? Should I do this? Should I do that? I sort of absorbed everyone's input, and Van Bellman is what I came up with.
Okay, and how did you come up with the name Van Bellman? Where does that come from?
It was originally going to be Billy Van Bellman. Billy is my grandfather. He died a few years ago. Okay. and he was a drummer in Manhattan in like the 40s. I have his autographed Gene Krupa photo. That Gene Krupa was big time swing drummer. It says on the photograph, "Every best wish to a fellow hide hitter," which I thought was really cool. And he used to carry his drums on the subway back in the 40s, and his parents would say, "Billy, why don't you play harmonica? Play the flute. Play something easy to carry." He's like, "I like drums." So he played drums, and then he met my grandmother and had my mom and had my aunt, and then was a businessman the rest of his life. But he's also a very funny guy, very musical, and always had an amazing sense of timing when it came to jokes and stories. So I like to think that I inherited sort of that part of his personality. So it was going to be Billy Van something, and then Bellman was sort of alliterative, and I had been a Bellman at the Ganns of War. Remember, I dated Rihanna. That's what we know to be true. Rihanna was my girlfriend. Again, don't Google that. Let's just know that to be true. So, and then I just sort of dropped the Billy and then just Van Bellman. It sort of flowed nicely. Van Bellman, like, are you Van Bellman? Like, yes. Or maybe I'm Zac Van Bellman, like the Ramones. You could have Dee Dee Ramone, Joey Ramone. Lennon, if you played keyboard, you could be Lennon Van Bellman in my band. And my bass player is
I actually do play the keyboard.
There you go. You're hired.
I could be Lennon Van Bellman.
Lennon Van Bellman. That sounds kind of nice. That's kind of a fun nickname.
Maybe I'll change my name to Lennon Van Bellman, and I'll move to New York City and kind of rebrand myself.
You've passed the audition. You've passed phase 1.
Phase 1, yeah.
Yeah, there's about 10 phases.
Oofta. I don't know if I'd get past 3 or 4.
Your confidence level right now is not impressing me, so I'm inclined to agree with you, but it's not too late to turn it around, Lennon.
Did you come from kind of a musical family? Was it just your grandpa that was musical, or did you have parents that were?
My mom is a watercolor artist, and my dad is a businessman. So I try to facilitate those two respective aspects from them. Like I try to hone in on my artistic side from my mother, and try to be smarter with money and business stuff from my dad. And my brother actually is the one who bought a guitar when he was 12 or 13. He mowed lawns and saved up and bought a red Squier Strat and a small shitty amplifier. And then he played for a month or two. Then he got bored and went to be a football player. He's much bigger than me. He could definitely whoop my ass. He could do it then. He can do it now. My dad always said, "William, you be nice to Zac. One day he's going to be bigger than you. He's going to whoop your ass." It is yet to happen. He's still about 80 pounds more than me. Anyhow, I would risk a beating every day after school. When he was at football practice, I would go into his room, play his guitar, and I really fell in love with it. I got the tablature books to learn all the Nirvana songs and Green Day songs and Pearl Jam songs. Met some friends who played guitar and stuff in middle school, and we would hang out on the weekends and jam, and like, "Oh, you can play Lithium?" Like, whoa. You can play Interstate Love Song by STP? Whoa. How does the intro to Jeremy by Pearl Jam go? Whoa. And we just had this amazing connection and camaraderie playing guitar and listening to music all the time. And
yeah,
I was pretty smitten from the get-go with the guitar.
Yeah, I mean, but can you play Smells Like Teen Spirit on guitar? That's kind of the signature. You're not a guitar player if you can't play Smells Like Teen Spirit.
This past Halloween, I went as Kurt Cobain. I got a wig, and I pretty much had most of the other Kurt Cobain-esque costume lying around. I went to a thrift store and got like a shitty green sweater. And my friends have a cover band called the Bayside Tigers. They do all 90s covers. And they texted me. They're like, "Yo, we're playing Brooklyn Bowl tonight. You want to come? It's going to be a Halloween-themed show." And I'm like, "Dude, I am Kurt Cobain for Halloween. What, can I come play a song?" They're like, "Do you know Smells Like Teen Spirit?" I'm like, "Motherfucker, of course I know Smells Like Teen Spirit. Are you kidding me?" So the guitar part I can handle. The singing part was the crazy part. So, because he's screaming. And, Kurt Cobain smoked a pack of cigarettes every day, probably since high school. So he had that amazing gravelly voice. So I did my best. I did a pretty okay job with the screaming part of it. My voice was gone for a day or two after that Halloween show. But yes, to answer your question the long way, Lennon, I can play Smells Like Teen Spirit on guitar.
All right, well, I think that would be phase 2. in becoming the Van Bellman? If you're going to be a guitar player or backup guitar player, can you play "Smells Like Teen Spirit"? Yes, and you pass phase 2.
How did you know that was phase 2? How did you know that? Who told you that? Because that's phase 2.
Lucky guess, I guess.
Phase 3 is a physical endurance test. We'll talk about that later.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about your American authors, kind of how that all came about. And like you put in your description here that you've had appearances like Conan on Ellen, which I'm a big fan of. You've played in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, Seth Meyers, James Corden, Kelly and Ryan, David Letterman. I mean, I don't even feel worthy speaking with you. Do you have a favorite one that you performed at, or do you have any kind of like interesting stories?
So the first one, I think it was January or February 2014. And it was like my first week or two playing with American authors. And they were going to go do Best Day of My Life on Ellen. And I had hung out with James, the guitar player, that New Year's Eve. So from 2013 to 2014, I hung out with him. And it was New Year's Eve, so we had plenty to drink. He's like, "Yo, we need a guitar player. Are you in?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And I have a very blurry memory. It was probably 3 or 4 in the morning. We're at a bar called Mona's in the East Village, and I had to get up at 7 o'clock to go to the stupid hotel the next morning. So I've definitely overslept my alarm. I got there at 8 or 8:30, still a bit tipsy. And then the manager took me in the back office and yelled at me. And I'm just like, I'm thinking to myself, as he's yelling at me, like, "Oh, fuck this job. I can't stay in this job anymore. I need to quit as soon as possible." And then like a week later, James called me like, "Hey, Ramit, that thing we talked about New Year's Eve, about you playing guitar with American Offers, you want to do it? Because we really need someone." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." So that like a week or two before that, Bruno Mars and company had stayed at the Gansevoort, and he's always very nice. And I doubt he knew my name, but he would recognize me if I saw him. And we were playing Ellen a few weeks later after I quit my job, which was just glorious. Quitting the hotel job was just such a... I pat myself on the back that day, and all my coworkers gave me a standing ovation when I walked into the lobby on my last shift. Bruno Mars was also playing Ellen the same day we were playing Ellen. And I was like, holy shit, I'm going to go see Bruno Mars and I will be accepted as his equal. I'm just kidding. Now, I wanted to see him and be like, "Yo, Bruno, remember me? I'm Zac from the Gansevoort. I carried your bags like 3 weeks ago. And now I'm playing Ellen too." I wanted to, lift him up, and he's a little guy. You can fit him right in your pocket. I wanted to lift him up and spin him around. Sadly, he was in makeup when I saw him, but I did see his drummer, and I had that moment with his drummer. He's like, "Oh yeah, you were the hotel guy. You're playing Ellen now. Cool." So that was a fun moment. A few weeks later was Conan O'Brien, and Conan was always like one of my heroes growing up. So meeting Conan and meeting Andy Richter, that was pretty special. We played on. We were among the last few dozen bands to play on David Letterman, because pretty soon after that it switched over to Colbert. So that was special. Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade was insane. When you play on the Macy's one and shows like that, none of my friends really watch that, but all of my friends' moms Facebook messaged me and emailed me like, "Oh, we saw you on the float in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. You look so cute. It must have been so cold. We're so proud of you." So those, I always get a lot of feedback from my friends' moms, which is great, because they used to, drive me to baseball practice, and were always very encouraging growing up of me pursuing music. So those little moments are always special.
Tell us a little bit about that kind of moment when the curtain, like she's announcing your name and then the curtain draws and then you start going, you start playing. What is that experience like? Is it like nervous? Are you nervous you're going to mess up? Are you excited? Are you just kind of overwhelmed? What is that like?
It's a lot of fun. I think it is all of those things. You get nervous. You don't want to mess up. There's millions of people watching. And for me, I'm like a hired musician, so I especially don't want to mess up. And it's a song you've played a bunch of times, so you get there super early, you do a big long sound check, and you're only doing one song. So you sound check a bunch of times with that one song. You make sure we're all wearing in-ear monitors, so make sure you can hear yourself, you can hear the band, you can hear the count-in, and then you do you perform a song a bunch more times so cameras can block and they can see how you're performing, the dynamic of the song, and you have a sound engineer in the sort of like backstage studio making sure we sound good. And so you do it a bunch of times. So by the time you're actually doing it, when Conan O'Brien says, "Please welcome American authors," you've already done it 10 or 12 times that day. You know how the lights are going to be. You can hear yourself very well. So they set you up to succeed and have a great performance. And it's really just up to you just to relax. There's a live studio audience there usually, so typically you just like pretend you're playing a show and have a good time and try to bring a lot of energy, play in time, sing in tune, and you just try to have a good time, because if you think about it, then you're gonna mess up and you're gonna ruin the moment for yourself, and that's not gonna be good for anybody.
Mm-hmm. And you put in here also that you play guitar, the keys, the banjo, the mandolin, and you also sing backup for American authors. Do you do more like guitar than you do, say, mandolin, or is it just kind of whatever they need, or do you have a favorite one that you do for them?
I definitely do more guitar than the other stuff.
Okay.
And I do a lot of background vocals. And when they hired me, they said, "You play keys too, right?" I'm like, yeah, sure, of course I play keys. And my keyboard level was certainly not nearly as good as my guitar playing level. I can get around basic chords, and luckily with a lot of pop rock music, they stick a lot with a C and the A minor and the F and the G and some very simple, straightforward licks. So in the week or two between when they hired me and when our first rehearsal was, I played so much keyboard and really practiced and really got all the songs down. Luckily, they didn't have me, they're like, "All right, this one's in C, we're gonna do this in C sharp." I would have been totally effed. And guitar is no problem. Guitar, it's easy to translate from key to key. Keyboard would have been a nightmare for me. So I definitely practice keyboard a lot more when I've got a keyboard part to play. Same thing with mandolin and banjo. And again, I don't have to play like any sort of Chris Thiele transcriptions on mandolin, nor do I have to, play any Bela Fleck sort of concertos on banjo. It's very simple, straightforward stuff. So you gotta play it with conviction, and after you've played it a bunch of times live, it becomes muscle memory. So if you learn it right the first time, you should be in good shape.
Yeah. Well, yes. And plus, C sharp is not an easy key to play with because everything is sharped.
Yeah,
so,
it's a nightmare. And there's a way to change the keyboard and transpose it up or down, but I never fuck with that. I just try to learn it in the right key, and then hopefully they don't change the key on me.
Right, because if you push thing like if you're supposed to be in the key of C and you push transpose up one, so you're playing a C major, but it's actually playing a C sharp major, while they're playing in the band is playing in C sharp and the guitar and everything. They're fine, but you're having to transpose those chords as they come. Like, oh, that would be C sharp is actually a C major, and then a G sharp is actually a G major, and that's too much processing to do up on stage without no rehearsal. So, and
sometimes the keyboard, we do a lot of backline rentals. So if we fly for one show in Austin, Texas, we're not going to bring a keyboard with us. We're gonna show up, and there's gonna be a drum set and guitar amplifiers and a Nord on stage. Sometimes it's already pre-transposed into something else. So I'm there trying to play it, and it doesn't sound right. I'm like, God damn it, what is wrong with this thing? And it's in the wrong key, and I look like an idiot until we figure out how to put it in the right key. Luckily, we have a very capable stage tech manager named JJ who knows how to do all that stuff. I'm not good with that sort of stuff. I close down very quickly when something's not going right on a keyboard. I'm like, oh God, what is wrong with this thing? Get me out of here.
Yeah. I can imagine like the tech issues and stuff. Nothing can go wrong. Everything should be picture perfect. So it's kind of nice to have that kind of backup person to come save the day.
It is very nice. It is certainly a luxury playing with those guys, because Green room snacks are amazing. Usually there's a buyout or we get fed very well. A lot of free booze. We've been on a private jet a handful of times. So it's you get pretty spoiled playing with a band like that. Then when it comes down to back to playing with my band, it's like I try to find a rehearsal space in Brooklyn that I can afford, and I pay for my own Uber, and I try to treat the band to dinner and drinks, and then I set up everything on stage. I have to book everything. I've got to deal with all the sound guys myself. I have to wear like 12 different hats, which is great because it's my songs and I get to sing and I get to run the show, and it's the favorite thing I do in my life is singing the songs that I wrote with my band. I love it, and hopefully one day I can have that same sort of level of sort of level of comfort, and hopefully Van Bellman will have a private jet one of these days is my main point.
Right.
Remains to be seen.
Right. You'll get there eventually.
One of these days, Lennon.
You'll even be able to get VIP for the Harry Potter world.
That's right. That's phase 4. Phase 4 is VIP Harry Potter level, and then phase 5 is a private jet.
Okay. So then, I thought you said the physical endurance one was phase 4.
Try to keep up, Lennon, all right? Physical endurance was 3, Harry Potter 4, private jet 5. All right? You should really write this down.
Okay.
This is going to be
this
is going to be on the test
really
later.
should, so I can put it in the show notes, and then if anybody wants to be something Van Bellman, they'll have to go through the 10 or 12 step process.
That's right. For all you kids for all you kids at home listening, you better pay attention if you want to be your name Van Bellman, because it's a long way to the top if you want to be in the Van Bellman band.
Right, and it doesn't matter what your name is because it ends in Van Bellman, and it like Luke Van Bellman. You could have Betty Van Bellman. You can have Ursula Van Bellman. It all sounds great.
She can play the sousaphone. What if her name is Van? Could there be a Van Bellman? That would be weird. It would be Van squared Bellman.
Or you could have, what if you had Belle Van Bellman?
Belle Van Bellman. I like that.
I like that too.
Belle could be a boy or girl name.
Yeah, it could be kind of a tongue twister, but definitely a lot of fun.
Bill Van Bellman on the saxophone solo. Fuck, that was a trumpet. I went to music school. This is so embarrassing.
I think the saxophone is very hard to kind of mimic with your mouth. You actually need a saxophone to do a saxophone.
It's Baker Street. Perfect saxophone impersonation.
Yeah. That did sound...
I'll work on it. All right. Phase 7 is working on my mouth, brass, and woodwind sections.
I'll leave that to you because I don't think I can get to that phase. I don't have that kind of voice just yet. Phase 8 is believing in yourself. All right, Len? Jesus, you really got to keep up with this. I really do. I got to keep up with myself here. So let's kind of go into like making it as a musician, like how making a living doing what you're doing. I know a lot of people aspire to be musicians. I know even a lot of people at work that I work with, they want to be musicians and they want to make a living on music, or they know somebody that does, but they just don't know how to do it. So how does somebody make a living by being a musician and traveling, or even getting in with a band like that? Is it just having talent? Is it all in who you know? What is it? What's the secret formula? I don't know. I wish someone would tell me, because I'm I'm not killing it in the financial part just yet. There are good years and there are bad years. I feel like a lot of times in music, when it rains, it pours, and when there's a drought, you're eating rice and beans. And for a long time, like when I first got out of Berklee, I made a solo record, and I did a little tour, and then student loans started to kick in. All of a sudden, like, I had all this drive and all this energy, and then reality kicked in real hard, and all of a sudden I went from having no expenses to having to pay $400 in student loans, $700 in rent. That was before I even fed myself, and I was playing guitar on the subway. I was making
maybe $100 on a good day. And so that's when I moved from Boston to New York. I got a job at a hotel that paid like $17 an hour. And that's a lot of money for right then. $17 an hour is not bad. So I did that, and it was, kind of flexible around music gigs. So my first few years in New York, I didn't sleep a whole lot. I would get up at 7, go to the hotel, usually have a show or a rehearsal. Luckily, at the Gansevoort, my boss, Tamara, was very sweet, and she's also dating my friend. So she gave me a lot of leeway with my schedule. And I was there's no real way to answer that question except you always hear the word hustle. Oh, you gotta hustle. But it really is the name of the game. You have to hustle doesn't mean to, try to cheat people. It just means you have to improvise and work really hard, and you have to kind of invent something out of nothing, whether it's an opportunity or meeting the right booking agent or trying to get hired to play guitar with that band or get an opening slot with your band to play at that venue with this other band. There's no real way to do it. You just have to go out and work really hard, and hopefully you've made a bunch of friends with people, and you just gotta grind. I still take odd jobs every now and then because, American Authors, it pays a lot of the bills, but then again, I'm funding my own studio sessions and production sessions and mixing sessions. And I'm trying to buy a tube microphone. And that's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, along with rent and along with health insurance. And it's tough. It remains tough. A lot of my friends I just hung out with at the wedding, they all are bankers and lawyers and venture capitalists. And although I try to say while and although, it came out while though. While though they are certainly more financially comfortable than I am, I feel like they were really proud of me for trying to hustle and trying to, follow my dream of dreams, which is to be a professional musician. And they told me that they admired my level of hustle. And it's just, I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. You just gotta hustle. You know how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm on kind of the business side of the industry, but I kind of feel myself wanting to pull myself onto the music side of the industry because I played piano ever since I was in second grade, so 14, 15 years now. And so I have a lot of piano experience. I went to school and I got a degree in music production. So I was writing literally a song every single month, applying a new technique that we had learned, whether it be country style or orchestral, and then scoring music. And I have all this musical stuff under my belt. So I feel like I need to kind of pull myself in, and you've got to hustle. But I feel like the last 2 years that I've been on the business side of the journalism side and public relations and management and all that stuff, I feel like I've been able to network with a lot of very important key people and really kind of understand how the business side of the business works, and how do music publications work, how do publicists work, how do record labels function and kind of promote their artists. So when I kind of do transition, I'll have a very kind of good understanding when I go into that myself. So I think that's, in my definition, what hustling would be, is kind of figuring things out and then piecing the puzzle together so you can kind of figure it out, and then just making it work, putting the pieces that you have together, and if they don't fit, force them to fit. Otherwise, find something else that will fit in that area. So what would you kind of define hustle? What are some things that you've done to hustle other than you've played for American Authors, you practice, you have numerous instruments that you can play. What are some other things that you do outside of those things?
I try to be a good fan and good friend to my friends who are in a similar boat that I am. I try to, if they have a new song come out on Spotify, I'll put it in my Instagram story, like, yo, check out Lennon Van Bellman's new track. And I try to show up to my friends' shows. Again, take a picture, put it on Instagram, retweet the new release stuff. I try to be a supportive friend in the same way that, I would want my friends to return the favor with me. Like if I release a new song, so and so will retweet it and put it on their story, or they'll bring a friend to one of my shows. You gotta pay it forward, you know. You gotta have friends, especially in this industry. You gotta take care of your friends, and they'll take care of you. That's why I got hired to American Office, because I was friends with them. And I think just being homies and being supportive over the years was just as, if not more valuable than the fact that I could play guitar and stuff like that.
And you look at what American Authors has kind of done for you. In a sense, I'm sure that it's changed your life in certain aspects. Like you've appeared on like Ellen and Conan and the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Day Parade. So you got an inside look on how those things work. And you've got to meet some of the people that kind of run those shows and network with those people. What are their stories? What have they done? How did they get to be where they're at? Right?
Yeah, totally. And I bet a lot of them would say the same sort of thing. Like just, you know, work hard and be kind and support your brothers and sisters who are next to you trying to slug it out just like you. And then, you know, you make friends with them. I've made friends with people in Los Angeles, in Denver, in Boston, and Austin, and Dallas, and all over the place. And one of my favorite part about touring is when we play in San Diego, I'm going to call my friend Wilson. We're going to go have tacos. When we get to Austin, I'm going to call so-and-so, and we're going to go have tacos. And when I get to Chicago, I'm calling my friend Coy. We're going to have, you guessed it.
Tacos.
Nope, deep dish pizza. Phase 9 is deep dish pizza in Chicago.
Literally, that was my second guess. I was going to say Chicago deep dish pizza.
No one eats tacos in Chicago, Lennon. Come on, get with the program. It's deep dish pizza.
I would. I'm kind of basic like that. And what do you eat when you're in Dallas?
Dallas, well, this morning lo and behold, I had breakfast tacos at a TGI Fridays in the airport in Dallas. It was a wild scene. The reason we were in Dallas was because we woke up in Park City, Utah, which is an hour or so outside of Salt Lake City, where my friend's wedding was. I thought our flight was at 11:30. So we're getting ready around 8 or 9 to catch a car to the airport. Our flight was at 9:30, and I realized around 9 o'clock. I'm like, oh, fuck, I really fucked up. So I had to pay some money and pay some miles, and we were stuck in Dallas instead. We were supposed to go through Seattle, and my girlfriend Andy was super excited because she wanted to go to the Sub Pop store in Seattle, which has all this cool Nirvana and grunge stuff. She's a big fan. So we ended up going through Dallas instead, and then our flight to New York was canceled because of the snowstorm. And Dallas ended up being colder than both Park City, where there was a foot of snow on the ground, and New York, which just had a blizzard. But to answer your question, yes, I did have tacos this morning in Dallas, Texas.
That's awesome. It sounds like your life kind of revolves around tacos.
Not really. It's just been a taco-heavy week.
I mean, I never complain about. Do you just have regular tacos, or do you kind of spice it up with fish tacos? Or
I enjoy the fish tacos. I enjoy carnitas. I enjoy shrimp tacos. New York is not. There's some good taco places, but typically not a strong Mexican food place. Some people will fight me on this. I have come to not really seek out Mexican food in New York City. So other places is where it's always fun to treat yourself with something taco related.
So what is your favorite restaurant or favorite food in New York? I know everybody kind of rants and raves about New York pizza. I've had New York pizza, and honestly, it's not really a fan. Not really a fan.
Does Orlando have better pizza, Lennon? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, I like pizza, but to me, pizza is pizza. I mean, a pizza is a pizza. It's nothing that I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to like tweet about this because this is the best pizza I've ever had. Like, no, it's cheese, it's marinara sauce, and it's a piece of dough. That's all pizza is really to me. I've never really I mean, that's kind of with any food though. I've never really fantasized about and putting food on higher standards than other foods. It's just food to me.
Do you think that has something to do with your upbringing? Does your family like to cook, or you didn't really care for food, or not? What about when you're little and you would rent a movie? Wouldn't you like order Domino's or something like that? You and your friends get down some pizza, or it never did it for you?
Yeah, see, that's the thing is we I lived in a very small town. The population was maybe 2,200, 2,300 people, and the closest Walmart was a half hour away. So we had no Domino's, we had no Papa John's, we had no Jimmy John's, we had
How
nothing.
did you live?
You had to drive a half a mile or a half a mile, half an hour to pick something up. So my dad, he would work up there. He works construction, and on his way home, he would sometimes pick up a pizza if I was having a party or some friends over. But otherwise, if you're on a Saturday night and you decided to watch a movie and you didn't have anything and you wanted pizza, you'd have to drive a half hour up, pick it up, and drive a half hour back. So it'd be about an hour just to get pizza.
And this is in Florida?
No, this was actually back in Minnesota. I'm not from Florida. I moved to Florida for school.
I thought I detected a bit of a Viking accent there.
A Canadian accent. How about that?
I heard the boat just there. That was good. Our singer, our singer Zach Barnett is from Minnetonka.
Okay, that's a nice neighborhood down there.
Yeah, it gets cold. It gets really cold.
It does get cold. They were just talking. I just spoke with my parents, and they had, I think it was like 40 below wind chills is what they had, and they had
That's
my mom,
insane.
my dad had
Like,
sent a picture.
Why would you live there? Your parents did the smart thing by moving to Florida.
That's why I moved to Florida, because I wanted to go to school down here, and I wanted to get away from the cold. And everybody's like, "Oh, are you gonna like move back to New York or move up to New York and move up here, move that?" I'm like, I don't like the cold. I want to get away from the cold for like 5 or 10 years, and then maybe I'll think about it. Because there were some years. I remember I always tell this story, so I'm sure I've told it on the podcast before. But there was one year in the state of Minnesota where the governor, Mark Dayton, had canceled school in the entire state because it was 70 below zero.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So he canceled school in the whole state because, I mean, you got kids that would wait out for the bus and they take their gloves off and they play in the snow. They would freeze. The poor little things would freeze their hands off. So no school, no travel. They actually had that just this year even, because they got up to 50, 60 below. They canceled school for 2 days because it was so cold.
Oof, no spank you. But
No.
but living in New York does have its perks, especially if you want to meet the right people, and particularly someone like you who wants to work in publications and music business, but also music performance. I would say, I think most people would agree with me, that New York would be a stronger place for you to pursue those things over Orlando, Florida. Mm-hmm. What do you say to that?
I agree with you. I'm trying to leave Orlando just because it's a lot of like, if you're trying to get into like acting and theme parks, this is perfect. But that's not for me. I've done my part here and I'm ready to move on. I'm trying to move to Los Angeles.
Yeah, most people I know are doing the same thing.
I want to thank you for taking the time, for being on the show. Really appreciate it, especially after an hour you landed after your flight being canceled and being jet lagged and now getting really tired. That's pretty amazing. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. And I wasn't too much of a saint. I did get home, play with my cats for a little while, and then eat most of a pepperoni and hot pepper pizza. So I wanted to make sure I had energy to talk to you. And
Yeah.
If I would have fallen asleep, I didn't have the pizza power. And actually, I was the editor of the Berklee College of Music student newspaper called The Groove. So I used to interview a bunch of people, and so I know I appreciate a good interview, and I think you did a great job. And I listened to some of your other podcasts. I think you're doing a great job, Lennon.
So how can people keep up with you? You have such a high energy. You're such a great conversation. How can people kind of keep this conversation going? If they have any questions for you about anything you had said in the show, how can they ask you? And just how can they keep up with you and your work and your travels and all that fun stuff?
My Instagram and Twitter is at Zac Van Bellman, ZAC Van Bellman. I check that every day or so. VanBellman.com. My girlfriend Andy built it from Squarespace. I suck so bad at website stuff, so I'm glad that she's good at it. So I've got 3 songs out on the Spotifys and the Apple Musics and all that good stuff. Download those, share them, follow. When you go to sleep, if you could just put them on loop and just have it on repeat on Spotify so I can get that 0.003 cents per spin. I'd really appreciate that. I've got cats to feed.
That's the greatest thing I've heard in the whole podcast.
Glad I could help. Thank you, Lennon Van Bellman. Great talking to you.
And there we go. I had such a great time with Mr. Zac Taylor, Mr. Van Bellman. I'm not really sure which one I'm going to call him, so I'm just going to call them both because it's just a little bit easier for me. So I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Zac Taylor. He was such a great guest on the show. He shared so much information. I really enjoyed hearing his journey into the music industry and all of the experience he's had since his beginning journey. So without going too far and going on too many tangents, I want to jump right into the links to my mailing list, the Patreon, and the guest request form will be in the show notes below. I encourage you to sign up to my mailing list as it helps me notify you when new episodes like this are live, as well as providing some music industry tips and tricks. My Patreon account is also below, and that is a great way to potentially work with me and kind of give back to the show. And if you have any suggestions about how I can improve Patreon or how I can give back to all of you as kind of a thank you for listening, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than happy to hear your requests. And I would also really, really, really appreciate if you would leave me a 5-star rating or review in Apple Podcasts, as it helps me grow the show and help it be discovered by new listeners. And you can also leave a rating or review in whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, if that's Google or Spotify or Stitcher or wherever you listen to your podcasts at. There's also the guest request form. So if you or somebody you know would be a good guest for the show, please fill it out and or send it over to your friend. Have them fill it out and I will reach out if you are a good fit for the show. So thanks again so much for your support and listening to this week's episode of When Life Hands You Lemons. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Zac Taylor as much as I did. I had such a great time. And we will see you next week on When Life Hands You Lemons.